Okay, we're about to begin this plenary session on workers' rights and workers' control. In introducing this session, I've been asked by the organisers to make a few comments on current events in Venezuela. My name is John Cleary. I've been in Venezuela 7 times now with brigades of Australians who've been there. And each time I've had some interest in follow-up of the workers' movement there. It's not this time to discuss the other achievements of the Venezuelan revolution. That'll come up in other sessions of the conference. However, I think there's a couple of things to note. That in Venezuela, there is a process of transformation. It's an uneven process. It goes forward, it goes backwards, but it is developing significantly. But in Venezuela, they have a vision of a socialism of the 21st century, which is not the socialism that we've come to know of the Soviet Union, of China, or of Vietnam, or of Cuba even. They have a different view. They are constructing a socialism according to the will and the need of the people there. But one of the key common elements that's expressed all the time is that what they want in Venezuela is a deeply democratic society. And it's quite clear that there have been some great advances in that area. The communal councils, which exist all over Venezuela, are the most successful of those attempts so far. There are many thousands of these councils which involve meetings of people every week, and they are taking control of their own lives, taking decisions that affect their own lives, and they are directly funded by the state. So at the community level there is a significant development of democratic participation. The cooperatives movement began after the lockout and coup of 2003-04, and at that time workers understood, because they recovered industry. They needed to recover it after the sabotage of the employers. They learnt how to run their own industries. They learned the confidence that they had the skills, they had the abilities to do those things. That was probably the genesis of the workers' control movement that exists in Venezuela today. The government has gone through a couple of phases of trying to generate employment, to generate new opportunities for people in Venezuela, which previously had something like 60% of its population in the informal economy. So many attempts have been made to create new forms of work. The first attempts were cooperatives. The majority of those, thousands of cooperatives were formed, and they were essentially on the basis that the government would hold the golden share, that 51% of the ownership of those cooperatives would be with the government, and 49% would be in the control of the workers in that plant. The next step in that development was to go for what they call nucleus or endogenous development. And they are areas which were designed and set up where there was a particular need and particular skills. Our brigade has visited one in Katia many times, where there's a shoe factory, a clothing factory, a barrio dentro for the health of the whole community. Now there's another college which is part of higher education studies. All of these are seen to be of need to that community, and using the skills that exist in that community, and have created a significant amount of work. That was the next step, and there are many of those organisations. But currently, the thinking of the government, and this clearly comes after the great victory at Cedar last year, when that was nationalised after a long struggle from the workers there, that they would go to a more advanced form of workers' control. That workers' control would be based on the fact that the enterprise remains 100% government owned, but 100% worker controlled. So that is the form or the model which is being supported by the government now, and in our last brigade there we visited a factory called Normpro, which uses bauxite to create a very small pellet which is used in oil extraction. This was another company that was spun off from the National Oil Company. The bosses took whatever they could out of it and closed it down recently. The workers now have taken that over, but they haven't taken over ownership, they've taken over control, and they will be commencing production again in that place. But a feature in virtually all of these discussions is the form of management that they will use. Virtually all the cooperatives have a very flat management structure. Everybody gets the same rate of pay. Everybody's elected into positions of authority within the plant, whether that's in administration or local foreman. That's a very democratic process. This is continuing, and the debate now has moved to how will they operate in these very large factories, such as Alcasa and Cedar, where there's many thousands of workers. And in Guyana, where we visited this time, we had some contact with workers there, and they explained the process that's been going on there, which I think is worth repeating. President Chavez visited that area last year and exhorted the workers to take a more meaningful and more direct role in the revolutionary process, because it was clear to him and to others that the workers' movement was not, in fact, leading anything very much. So that was an exhortation that led to this year in that area elections for a panel of workers, of which 2 were selected to become the presidents of and some other important position of the Corporation Venezolana Guyana, which is an overriding organisation which controls the aluminium, steel and iron ore extraction, the main resource industries and production and electricity in that area, because 70% of Venezuela's electricity comes from the area of Guyana. This led to the development of Plan Socialista Guyana. And this is a blueprint, a broad outline about the future of that area, which deals with workers' control, but it deals with the role of workers in the new structures. Because clearly the discourse is that if you're going to have a democratic society, there must also be democratic processes in the workplace. Most of us spend a fair bit of our time at work, and so that in that area needs to be democratised as well. So the Plan Socialista Guyana has been adopted by the union movement in the Guyana area. It's been adopted and supported by President Chavez. Currently now in working tables to flesh that out, to decide what that actually means, what forms of organisation that they will use. They are looking at the experience of the workers' Soviets in 1917 in Russia. They're looking at the writings of Gramsci. They're looking at the experiences in Brazil, in Porto Alegre, of participatory democracy. There's a broad range of issues that are previous experiences, current experiences, that they're looking at to determine how they'll operate. Questions such as whether they'll retain flat rates of pay throughout the entire enterprise, or whether they'll have stratifications according to skills. These are subject of current debate. A very important development occurred in the last couple of weeks. The union movement, the National Union of Workers, previously had a position in opposition to workers' councils. This was quite clearly because they felt threatened, and it wasn't clear about what the role of a workers' council would be compared to what the role of a union was. Many unionists saw the introduction of workers' councils as an alternative which would end the role of unions. But 2 weeks ago, the UNT had a conference in Caracas and made a very clear statement on this matter. the decision was that in any workplace you can have both a workers' council and a union, and in fact you should have. The workers' council will ultimately be the new form of management, that workers will learn, they'll be involved in the decision-making process, and they'll deal with questions of production levels, resourcing, energy, the normal things that are in the prerogative of management in a current factory. The union will continue to do what it's always done: negotiate for collective contracts for the workers, deal with cases of discrimination or dismissal, or and the protection of workers' entitlements. In my opinion, that was a fairly significant step forward. Now you have the national union movement of the country in favour of the development of workers' councils. They are a little bit behind in some areas, because virtually all of the factories that have been taken over, and there are many thousands that have been taken over the last 10 years, already have instituted some form of a workers' council. The forms differ from place to place, but nevertheless they exist in a very flat management structure, and with the ultimate decision-making body in most cases being a general assembly of the workers. So that's, to me, was the most exciting thing about the last trip I did to Venezuela, to see that the union movement may now become a fiercely protagonistic part of this process of change, and deepen the democratic process that's going on there. So that was just a couple of thoughts on Venezuela.